representing New York, California. Great. So we're
Great.
already pretty global on this call here. So Patty, keep that in mind as you go through these questions today.
That is fabulous. I'd love to see that.
Great. Awesome. All right, so we got a couple more folks joining. Hello and welcome. We're going to get started in just about, let's say 30 more seconds here because I don't want to waste any more time, but I do want folks to be able to join with us on time.
So Mary, I'll ask you, is it typically international folks on the line for these chats, or is that?
Yeah.
Wonderful, great.
It's not uncommon. We get folks calling from, well, for example, I'm in Argentina. We get folks calling from France, from Canada, from Australia, from different parts of Africa, different parts of Europe. So even though, we get a lot of folks from the States, I always have some international live callers online, which I love.
Excellent.
Awesome. Chicago, Boulder, Colorado, via Chicago, LA, New York. Wow, nice. I would love to hear your story. Awesome. Great. Okay, so if you're ready, I will go ahead and get us started, Patty.
I'm ready.
Awesome. So we'll go live on the cloud here in 5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. But I do want to go over some quick housekeeping rules. I got a chance to speak with our guest speaker offline, and I know she's going to drop a lot of knowledge today. She's calling in from Hawaii, originally based in California. I'm calling from Argentina, originally from California, and we've got a lot of folks calling from different places in the world. So in order for us to maximize this time, I want everyone to feel comfortable and confident in this next hour. With that said, would love for you to participate. Turn your cameras on if you feel called to do so. If you haven't showered, it doesn't matter. We would still love your presence. If your house is a mess behind you or your workspace is a mess, doesn't matter. We would just love to see your beautiful smiling faces here. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of the chat to invite you off of mute whenever you have something you want to share. Make use of the chat box, of course, but please come off of mute and share your voice whenever you want to share a reflection, your own tips and tricks, something that you find works for you and you want to share right now. We would love to hear from you. I've muted everyone upon entrance just to avoid any background noise, but again, come off mute whenever you feel called to do so. If anyone has any sensitive information and you want to be kept anonymous, you can find me under Mariella Marie in the chat box. Write to me privately and I will keep your question or reflection anonymous and bring that up to our guest speaker. If you do come off of mute, you will be featured in our live recording. And the last thing I'll say is we'd love for you to follow us on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our awesome guest speaker who is currently spending a beautiful vacation in Hawaii. I'd love for you to share more about that journey too, because we love transparency. We love to know what folks are doing right now in this moment. And again, thank you everyone for joining us. Patty, let us know a little bit about yourself, how you came to learn about Power to Fly, and what you're excited to share with us today.
Sure. So I'm Patty White, and as Mariella described, I am in Hawaii for the very last spring break. I have 4 children, and this is my youngest, and it's the last year she'll have it. So we snuck over there, and you are hearing me in the very last hour of my trip here. And I am such a fan of job sharing that it was not even a sacrifice to feel like I would be online doing this, even in the last hour of a lovely vacation. So my background, you'll hear more about as I go through your questions about job sharing. You'll hear about my work background while I was job sharing. But eventually I did step out of the workplace and step back in as co-founder of a company called Reboot Excel. And the goal of Reboot Excel initially started focused on getting women current, connected, and confident to return to the workplace if they've taken a career pause. And so to do that work, I do a lot of public speaking. I do consulting with companies to make sure that they have the kind of cultures where women will thrive. I coach the women at the companies to make sure they can make the kind of impact they want to have and move through the ranks. And because of this work supporting women, my co-founder, Diane Flynn, and I ended up writing a book called The Upside, Better Outcomes When Everyone Plays, that is focused on gender diversity. But since various events of the last year, we recognize that there's more diversity that needs to have attention than just gender. And so we hired on a woman you might have seen in Power to Fly, a Power to Fly chat last month, Dr. Alexandria White, and she has helped us broaden our services so that now we address all diversity in companies. And the topic today, job sharing, I thought would be a great one for this group precisely because of the demands and challenges that COVID has presented for working parents. So women, men, and in fact, not just parents, but caregivers. If you're caring for an elderly relative that has either gotten COVID or something else, you find that you have some tremendous pressures that a job situation like job sharing could help relieve.
Beautiful. So I know you're going to roll into, dive into these questions that folks have submitted offline. I have had the honor to speak with some of your fellow Reboot Excel women, and I definitely encourage folks to go and follow them on LinkedIn and to keep up with all the awesome news that they're sharing, in 2021. So I know you all have been, flourishing, and that you really have, great integrity with what you're sharing with the world. So I just want to say thank you, and it's an honor as well to speak with you today. So you all have submitted some great questions offline. We are going to take these questions one by one. If you see your question, like for example, this question here, if you see your question come up on the screen, again, feel free to come off mute, write in the chat box. If this is not your question and you still want to share your voice, feel free to share your voice either in the chat box or come off of mute. I'll sound like a broken record. Don't worry. I want to hear from you all today. So Patty, let's start with this question here. What is a job share and how did you land yours?
I'm going to back up for a minute and just say kudos to Power to Fly for this format, because I think it is such a great format rather than just having someone lecturing about a topic. So thanks to all of you for the questions that you have shared. And because I was able to see them ahead of time, I obviously can craft my answers to making sure I'm covering what you care about. But it also means that some of my questions earlier might be a little shorter because I know we're going to get to a question that's going to have more information later on down the road. So for this first one, I'm going to leave it kind of basic. So on the what is a job share, it is what is typically a single job. So for those of you with an HR background or managers, that's a 1 FTE, full-time employee, that is divided between two people. I have seen job shares in the medical field. I've seen physicians switch out which days a week each one of them has responsibility for patients. I've seen it in schools where teachers in the same classroom will split days in the week. And I've seen it in a number of different roles in a business environment. And that's mostly what I will be talking about today. So as far as how I landed mine, I was fortunate, so I don't know if it'll apply to as many of you that are on the line today, but the company that I worked for, Hewlett Packard, in the 90s, it certainly wasn't common to be in a job share, but it was not uncommon. As I started my career there, I saw women in job share positions, not just women and men paired up for certain positions as well. And I thought, because I know I want to have a family, I will eventually want to do this. So part of it was knowing I wanted it. Part of it was also recognizing I don't want to be in that job share as an individual contributor because I don't know if it'll be harder to hit the management ranks. And I was definitely career oriented. And so I knew that I was going to wait to be a manager to ask to do a job share. And while it was common in the company, it wasn't common in the very fast growing division that I worked in. So although they understood the concept, there was still a lot of selling involved, and we'll talk about that in one of the future questions as well.
So fascinating. And please share more of your journey as we go through these questions, because I know that because it is uncommon, or at least it was uncommon, it's great to hear, personal stories, of course, as much as you want to share. And I also just want to shout out that we're pretty global here on the call today. So I'm going to shout folks out right now. And if you're just joining us, please write in the chat box where you're calling from. So we've got Austin, Texas, Virginia, San Francisco, Germany, We've got Boulder, Colorado, the Bay Area, Pakistan, New York, California, Washington, D.C., Buenos Aires, California. Great. So my first question, just to get the chat box heated up, is, where you are in the world or in your experience, has this been common or is this uncommon? Because I know we speak normally from a place of, I'm born and raised between Georgia and California, but sometimes as I travel the world, I realize that, these concepts that we thought could never happen have actually been happening in different places in the world. And maybe, it's just a time now that we share more as a global community and we give feedback and we, encourage each other. So just throwing that out there, if anyone in the chat box wants to write, if they've had any experience, if they have no idea what this is, if they know someone in their neighborhood, who has been a part of this type of work that I think is great. And Patty, I know you're going to dive into this later, so I don't want to take the mic too long from you. Okay. Let's move on to this next question here. What makes job sharing different from part-time positions? My fear with part-time is not to be recognized for achievements or encouraged for advancements and challenges or promotions.
So whoever wrote that question, that's exactly a sentiment that I shared in pursuing a job share rather than part-time. So my view or my perspective of many part-time jobs is if you are doing some work that you can be out of the office or working part-time and it can wait for you, then it's a job that's less likely to be on the kind of career track that I want it to be on. You might get promoted in that very same discipline, but as far as moving up the ranks through a company, I think it would be a lot less likely if you're in a job that can afford to have work waiting until you're back again. So I intentionally looked for a job share because it is this job share team is in a professional role. And as long as you can operate similarly to the way a single person operates, you should have the same career advancement potential as the other career-minded individuals holding a full-time job.
I love that, because I know that, when we start to dive into things that aren't so common, we have so many questions we don't want to be taken advantage of. And especially as, folks from communities who are normally underserved or underheard, they don't want to be taken advantage of. We don't want to be taken advantage of. So again, thank you, Patty, for sharing your experience and for clearing up some of the questionable factors of job sharing. I think it would also be nice to know if anyone has had any experience here. So Lisa has written in the chat box, my last company fostered job sharing, especially for moms or single parents. Awesome. Carrie writes, I'm here because I have been studying alternative methods of getting work done in large enterprises. So great. So Patty, you can take those two examples from our live callers now that we've got folks who are interested, folks who have the experience. And also I'm assuming folks have no idea, I'm one of those people for what this kind of work entails and how to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, essentially. Let's move on to this next question here. So do you ever feel like you were paid to work part-time, but ended up working full-time?
So again, I think this is tied. And so I put this question after this one about the part-time work, because that I think is more of an issue of a part-time job. People start to expect you to do more than what you've signed up for. If you are in a job share, then you've got this partner. And so you are working that single full-time job between the two of you. Now, the HR department of HP was very good about supporting job shares. And early on, here we were working in the tech industry in the 90s. That was a very demanding, fast-paced, it was a little pre-internet, so different than the kind of pace, or at least the kind of work you'll see in the internet companies, but I think the pace was similar. And so we all knew even if you were a single person having that job, you're going to be working more than 40 hours. But what the HR department said is that as a job share team, if you find yourself working 40 hours, then you've got to rethink whether you want to be in a job share, and you might as well just be back and be your full-time worker again. Now, that said, we knew we were going to work more hours than we were technically paid for, given we're salaried employees, and most salaried employees that are paid 40 hours, they're working more than that anyway. And we worked our pro rata amount extra of our job share portion, but tried not to get in the space of where it suddenly was looking like a full-time job.
Awesome. And then I know that you are, unfolding and developing more of what job sharing is. And I have a message here in the chat box. So I don't know if you want to tackle it right now.
I think we're going to get it with the next question, because that's where all the details and specifics come in. It's about how do you share the workload? What does it look like? And I'm also going to say, Carrie, I'm not sure if you're studying this for any research work or whatever, but if you want more detail on how this works, I would be happy to connect with you afterwards and show you proposals and all that information. So my job share partner and I put together the proposal for our division, and in it we described that our plan was that we were to each be 75% employees, which was what was typical of job shares at HP at that time, because you needed to work 30 hours in order to get benefits. And so our 30 hours, the way we described it is we would each work 3 10-hour days. So I was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from, let's say, 8 in the morning till 6 at night or otherwise. But I was 3 days early in the week. We overlapped on Wednesday, and she worked Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We were first line managers at the time, and so we identified certain things that were to happen on that overlap day. One of the things that would happen would be our staff meetings and any personnel issues that we felt like we should deal together so that the individuals could see that we had a common front on whatever the issue was. We also spent a lot of time outside of those 3 10-hour days leaving voicemails for one another. As I would drive home at the end of my 10-hour day, I would leave a series, fill up that voicemail, start up the next one, but detailing exactly what I did through that day. And it would be her responsibility before she showed up on Wednesday to have listened to all those emails so that we did not have significant overhead when she showed up on Wednesday of now catching her up on everything that I did the past 3 days. Other things that happened on that overlap day is eventually we were able to be double booked and be in 2 different meetings. And so where instead of being 1 FTE, we were 1.5 because we wanted benefits, the company was getting the value of that because we could be double booked, and various values and benefits that I will describe as we get into one of the future questions. So it was really our goal in this job share was to make it for everyone that we interacted with to have it be seamless. If they had a conversation with her one day, I could pick up on that same conversation the next day that I was in. And we were able to successfully do that. So I'm seeing in the chat here a question: how do you avoid one of the job shares taking on a management role? Does a promotion come as a pair? So we established our job share as it's our intention to be totally seamless. And so our pay would be the same. Our performance evaluation would be the same. So you've got to trust your partner enough to know that they're going to carry enough of a load that if you operate at a certain level, you don't want them dragging you down in any sort of performance evaluation. So we get the same rating because we are one person here. But by the way, we would each like to know how individually we can develop. So we wanted individual development plans, but we want plans for our ranking and how we're rated in the company to be the same. So I just see that Carrie and Dana resolved the question they had.
Yes,
so
thank you.
There were other job share teams in my division that ended up being a job share first level management team. And my manager was manager for both of us. And she at one point came to my partner and I and said, listen, I know you guys are totally seamless. This other team, I'm hearing from their people that they ask one of them a certain type of question and they wait for the other one to come in later in the week to ask another type of question. What my point of view is, if you are trying to be seamless, I was not as comfortable with that. I just felt like our employees should feel like they could ask each one of us anything, and any of the external and internal individuals should not have to hold off on asking a question until the other one was in the office. But apparently the people that did report to the one that split it up, they were fine waiting. So some of this is really subjective, and it all depends on your actual team.
I love that we've got a lot of chatter in the chat box, which means folks are super interested, and that Patty, you can definitely dive in with your expertise here. So Dana writes, should it be the individual's responsibility to identify the person that they share the job with?
Yes, and I'm wondering whether, I mean, that's a question coming up about what are the traits you want in a job share partner. So because I knew I wanted to job share, and because I knew there was a better than likely possibility because HP did them, I had been seeking out and trying to think of who do I think would be good job share partners. I believe I talked to the other job share management teams I knew to find out, ask them a little bit about how it worked, but also said, hey, do you know who else might want to do this? Because other people just like myself are asking them those kind of questions. But I do think you want to find your own job share partner so that you can come up with the norms and development of how you are going to work together.
Awesome. Thank you for that response. And if that person has any more questions, Dana, let us know. You can hop off mute or you can write in the chat box. Until then, I'll move on to Esther's question here. How much time did the update for the seamless workflow take?
So it took a significant amount of time. So my commute home was maybe a half hour, and I would spend that entire half hour leaving voicemail messages. My job share partner was also very loquacious. And so initially, I would listen to those messages after. So here we are, both there on Wednesdays, but she might have been in different meetings than I. So Wednesday night, I'm going to listen to her meetings as I head into work. Thursday, I'm going to go to that shared voicemail box and I'm going to see, did she leave any questions or any more messages? Friday, I might do the same. Over time, as we were really well in sync, I could leave on a Wednesday and not listen until Sunday night before I came in, be caught up on everything and be ready to go. So it is a lot of time leaving those voicemails and listening to those voicemails. The time when I would choose to be involved with that changed as we got more comfortable in doing a specific job together. And each of us were always readily available to the other if a question came up. But again, the way we set it up to make it easy for our management and our people is the agreement that whoever's in the office has full decision-making authority for our position and also full responsibility to resolve any issues that come up. So it was rare that we ended up calling the other one on their off day because we really felt like we would just move along, and we thought well enough together in how we approach things that we never really questioned, oh, am I doing the right thing?
So fascinating. I would love to see more folks take on this role together. I think you get a lot of soft skill building, right? You have to practice emotional intelligence. You have to be mindful of your time and the other person's time. I know that we might dive into this a little later, but let's just go for it now. How about, as you are getting to know each other, in the case that, you do start working with someone and you're sharing a job, how do you recommend resolving conflicts? Maybe some microaggressions pop up, or maybe, as you're learning the personality of the other, how would you recommend, practicing, I would say,
Marielle, it is so fascinating to get that question from you, because it obviously was not one of the ones that came in earlier. And as I sit here and think about it, I cannot remember a time that I harbored any, oh, this is going to be a difficult conversation, and how, will we do this? So we are going to come up with a question of like, what are the qualities of your job share partner or something like that? And the three pieces that are so important are that you trust one another, that you over communicate. So again, we managed people. And so if I was in a meeting with one of the folks and I noticed, hey, I assigned them this, and I noticed they had a funny look on their face. So don't be surprised if you hear something more about this. And so where you're describing that EQ, we were using that in the people that we interacted with on our job share partners day off, and conveying that kind of information so that they'd be aware when something came up that this may be an issue and they weren't blindsided. So that trust, that over communication, my husband would listen to me listening to emails and leaving emails, and he would a little bit roll his eyes because we were so incredibly detailed. The third piece, and perhaps the most important piece for the success of for the company, what the company is looking for, is that you prioritize things the same way. We, back in the day, before a lot of the Google Doc collaborative software, we had a physical notebook, and we had a list of the tasks that we were responsible for, and we would write in the updates for them. But I could show up on a Monday and there are 10 things on there, and I'm not going to tackle them from top to bottom. I'm obviously going to tackle them from the most important ones first. And the fact that we agreed so that Wednesday, when she came in and certain things were finished, and that's exactly what she would have done if she was in on a Monday, that was the most important part. So I would say if there are any issues, it's the fact, you may know that with people you love, you can critique them in a way it doesn't even feel like a critique. It feels like sharing information because it's coming from a place of trying to make both people better. And that's where it was never an issue, and we didn't have those kind of conflicts. That said, I had heard in other teams that there can be conflicts. So it really depends on how the two of you choose to work together.
Thank you for that, Patty. And I love that you're able to reflect on when you say, back in the day when you had a notepad. Actually, I still use a notepad, so I'll say it in my present day as well. That these the tools that the sharing, like Google Share. Sorry, I can't think of the correct way to say it now, but that someone can actually do that work at the maximum extent.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's these collaborative platforms that will allow for more communication, to over communicate, to make sure that, things are being done in that way. So I love that you're giving a shout out to, how we used to do things back in the day. And hopefully that will give encouragement to let people know that, you can actually have way more tools on your side to make sure it's seamless. All right. So let's move on to this next question here. You were promoted as a job share team. What did that look like?
Okay, so this is an interesting story. And here I mentioned that we were the first in our division to be a job share. There were a number of job shares that followed on both the individual contributor level and a first line manager level. And then we were approached, I think one of us was approached to take on, there was a strategy, head of business development strategy role open that was a level higher than what we were in our division. And so eventually we were approached to consider that job, and we started interviewing, and they really liked us for it. And as they came down to the final, ready to give an offer, they just said, listen, this role works with a lot of the senior management team. And so while you can do this as a job share, we know you've been seamless, we need one name that we can give those senior managers. And we pushed back and said, no, that's not how this works. We will give you one phone number, and that senior manager or whoever else, they can call this number and their needs will be taken care of by whoever is in the office. And so they reconsidered and they said, okay, we'll do this on a trial basis. And it ended up working so well that the female general manager of this multi-billion-dollar fast-growing division ended up job sharing with the woman that we reported to that was initially hesitant to have us in this senior role as a job share. So people found out that it could work. The other piece that I want to tell you about once we were promoted, so that whether this is promoted or whether you just choose to take a different role, we were both serious about advancement at the company and responsible about making sure this is working for the company and not just for us. It was great for us and we wanted to keep it going. So if we were in a new role, we overlapped 100% for the first couple of weeks. In the role we're coming from, we knew it so well that, as I said, I didn't have to check in until a Sunday night before I was arriving on Monday. But now this is a brand new role, a brand new team of people were responsible for managing, and different individuals within the company and outside that we're dealing with. So we doubled up until we felt comfortable enough saying, okay, now we're going to go back to our split. And again, that was done without the extra pay, but for us, it was the long-term investment. After being in that role for a couple of years, we were promoted once again within our division to the next level and did the same thing as we were promoted of the doubling up before we then felt fine to do the split again.
What a beautiful way to advocate for each other. I mean, I really see that the possibility of that, strengthening advocacy, working as a team. You know, the teamwork makes the dream work to the full extent in this situation. And thank you also for showing us that it can work out. I know you said that you've heard how, you know, maybe there have been situations, and of course we're human, we're always getting to learn about ourselves and each other. So I really appreciate this, sharing your journey that had, you know, positive outcomes, essentially.
Yep.
Great. All right, so let's move on to this next question here. If you're not a parent, how can this apply, knowing that non-parents also have goals, aspirations, and responsibilities outside of work?
Love the question. Simple answer. My job share partner was not a parent at the time that we job shared. She just had some outside interests that she was interested in pursuing, and she wanted to be in a job share. So it has nothing to do, well, for me, everything to do, but in theory, nothing to do with what your motivation for job sharing is. So I think it's topical now because in this time of COVID, I hear of women leaving the workplace at much greater rates than men as their children are doing school from home. So I think it feels very tied to parenting. And I think it's, you know, good motivation to start this. But you do not have to be a parent. You do not have to be a female. When we had male-female teams, it is just a really, really nice lifestyle.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for highlighting that. All right, so let's move on to this next question here. What are the main benefits from job sharing?
And so here's what I'm going to ask you. There was so much information. I asked Mariella to include another slide where I list out the benefits to the company and to the employee. So long list, and I'm just, for those of you that are going to read ahead, I'm going to tell you that what's in pink are the typical ones that I had in my job share proposal. The ones in green for the company, I think, are particular to COVID right now. So experience and strength. We were able to show that because you've got two individuals that have two different past experiences on our resumes and two different sets of experience or strengths as far as what we're really good at. One might have been better at public speaking, one better at strategy. Of course, both at a level that we were comfortable with sharing this job and knowing that we were not pulling any extra weight for any of those tasks. But ultimately, they are just getting a more qualified employee in that kind of position than a single individual. Productivity. Huge benefits in productivity for a couple of reasons. So one of them is, think about how you go through your work week when you're doing a 40-hour-a-week job. There are, you know, we call it a hump day for a reason, and Friday you're kind of lagging again. You have someone showing up on a Wednesday who is energized and motivated and can be that, have that same energy for the next 3 days. So you've got the full, since we were working 10-hour days, 50 hours a week, you've got an energized employee. Because you have someone else that on our major tasks, we were good at brainstorming together for new ideas and validating decisions quickly. Sometimes you might have something challenging and you're stewing over the decision. What if you had a partner that you go like, here it is, what do you think? And both agree it's a shorter time to action, shorter time to make decisions, making better decisions. We would take less of our manager's time because we could bounce things off one another. And then finally, we're accountable to one another to get things done. I don't want her to show up on Wednesday and feel like nothing was completed. And so productivity really increases. Flexibility that a company gets is that when my job share partner goes on vacation, I can cover for her. If one of us is ill, the other one can cover. I described about double booking. We certainly did that when we were promoted and we're double, but if a crisis came up or an interesting new opportunity, we had the flexibility to say, okay, both of us will step in right now. And we didn't feel it was taking advantage of us because we also worked out that we would get comp time. If we are doubling up here, I'm going to take comp time a little bit later when it's not as crazy. The creativity is the dual brains on brainstorming. The quality is you've got two sets of eyes looking at important documents to make sure they're of the highest quality level. The loyalty is the retention of employees who are producing well. And then finally, the PR of being one of these companies that people say is a great place to work because they support that kind of flexibility. As far as COVID, one of the things happening right now in some companies is they are having to eliminate positions. They're going to have to lay people off or furlough. Well, here's an idea where you can eliminate a position, but if people want a job share, you can keep both of your employees. And again, some of the reasons for job sharing, whether it be outside interests or whether it's care for young children, they change over time. And at a later point, people may want to go back to full-time. So you haven't lost that quality employee, but you've just found a way to keep them on at fewer hours. The idea now, as we hear of, and I mentioned the numbers earlier, that 1 in 4 women are leaving the workforce, supporting these caregiving parents, it is a need right now. So that would be a COVID benefit of this, to give them a couple of days off by being able to share a job. And then finally, this idea of improving employee well-being, I'm going to carry that over because that's a benefit that the company gets, but it really comes out because of the benefit that I, as the employee, am getting. And so I'm getting some work-life balance, obviously. In a job share, I'm getting the opportunity to advance. I am not put on this sidetrack now of a part-time job that is not going to have advancement. Ultimately, when I am in sync with my job share partner and everything is working smoothly, when I leave on a Wednesday, I can truly turn off on Thursday and Friday and Saturday, not Sunday, because I'm ramping up again. But I knew before that in my challenging roles, I was never really off. You're always thinking about something that's waiting for you, or, just considering, what do I do next in this? So wonderful to know that someone else is thinking about all that so that I can let go. And then finally, the less stress is obviously paired to that, I can let go part, but it's also that less stress of, did I make the right decision here? And when I have to have a difficult conversation with an employee or any of those hard things, you've got a partner you're sharing it with that can boost you up to do something that's more difficult, that can validate the decision and make you feel better about it. And so just the whole concept of being in a challenging job is less stressful. And now I'm looking at the chat because that's it for the slide, and I'm seeing if there's some new questions that are coming in.
Yes. I love this. Thank you for this thorough slide and thorough response. And I would like to flag a question here from Maitili, who says, basically it's a question about advocacy. So how do you make sure that you have the environment which supports the job sharing opportunity in the company? She's asking because a lot of times implementing programs like job shares, you need a lot of support from your manager or seniors in the organization. So how do you get it?
Great question. And I think that, and let's leave this on for a minute, but I think it might go to the next question when we get to how do you propose it to a manager, because it is within the proposal that you need to be asking for those supports. So as you look at those company benefits, we had bolded every one of those and a short description after it to really hit home in writing as we're proposing this job share, recognizing that, hey, while this is nice for us, that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the benefits that you're going to get. If the company buys into believing all of these, especially even right now, the ones in green, wanting to be a good place to work, wanting to show that they're supporting their employees, then they need to buy into the fact that they want to make it work. So that's an important component of the way they look at it as well. And so let's move ahead and see if that proposal was the next question.
Okay, so this next question.
This question I answered earlier when you asked about best practices. And again, as the refresher, trust, over communication, or just a lot of communication, and that you prioritize things the same way. And a lot of leadership classes will do that little inbox game. You know, here's your inbox and how do you prioritize what's in there? Perhaps if you don't know your potential job partner well, you might try to find one of those activities and just make sure that you resonate in that way.
Awesome. So let's go to this next question and see if this is the one you were.
So here you go. How do I introduce it to my employers? So I went digging and I found the proposals that I used at the different levels as we were promoted, et cetera. And so the next slide, I listed out the components of what we had in the proposals. So we started off with a statement, you know, Patty and Shelley want to share this job. So we're just very clear in what we're looking for. And then the objective, we had a paragraph about the objective of the role. So it's a little bit of the job description, not extensive, but just a 2 or 3 word, we understand what this job is. So our objective is to perform really well in this particular job. And then we also had a paragraph about our objective for the job share. And so our objective is to successfully demonstrate that a job share team has significant advantages. And then went into the benefits. And so the business unit or the division, that got that list of benefits we saw in the earlier slide. And again, bolded every one of those and a short description afterwards. Then we had a section of what are the benefits to our staff. Again, we were managers, so just we wanted to nip in the bud any concern they had about, oh my gosh, these people are going to have 2 managers. So we had things like their benefits is the perspective that they're getting from 2 different managers with different experiences in terms of their development. They'll have equal access to each of the managers. They'll have regular one-on-one meetings according to what they would prefer, whether they want both of us on a Wednesday or whether they want another day of the week is better, so they get one or the other of us. Their salary for the individuals will be administered jointly. We'll rank them jointly. We'll be familiar with any of the issues, and there's an open door policy for any of them in terms of how they'd work together. So we were very specific in how they would work together or how we would work with our staff and what their benefits would be. And so, you know, finally, when I even look back on here, so to the staff, it provides 2 proven managers to learn from, to seek advice and feedback from, and receive support from in ranking and promotion opportunities. It provides 2 managers to assist in the continual refinement of, in this case, it was a relatively new position that reported to us. And then finally, benefits of the job share team. I did not give them the list you saw on the other slide of I get work-life balance, I get to be less stressed. Again, it was about the company. And so here's what we wrote, that for the job share managers, the benefit is it offers the opportunity to maintain career status with an important and challenging position that's not often characteristic of a regular part-time position. So our benefit, again, was a company benefit. It keeps us on a track to keep performing for you. Then we listed out the very specific work arrangement that we created between the 2 of us. And we described the specifics of our approach because some job shares might divide up responsibilities differently. So we described what we meant by a true sharing and how we would do the communications. We described our approach to people management, our approach to the ranking, evaluation, and pay of our people, and then our intention about covering for the other one around vacation and being flexible with our days off so that we could cover, like I said, crises or opportunities if needed. Any questions on that? And I don't know if I'm frozen.
Hi,
There we
Patty.
go.
How are you? I'm
Good.
checking over it to see if Mariela is all right. Let me open your presentation. Give me just one second
Okay.
so we can carry on while Mariela is getting back to us. Give me one
Okay.
second. I think she has just joined again. Mariela, are you there?
I'm here. I apologize. Internet tech giants are against me right now, but thank you, Paloma, for jumping in on that.
Well,
Right.
Great. So we'll start. I'll share this awesome slide that you were just wrapping up on here.
Yeah. So if anyone has questions on that, but I think your proposal, if you're really trying to garner the support, which was the question in the chat about this, you've got to really show that there are so many company benefits to this that it's in everybody's interest to make this successful.
Thank you so much for putting this together. I mean, this is great. This is awesome. I'm going to rewatch this and take some notes on myself as well. I would love to just ask our live audience now, does anyone have any questions after this really thorough slide? Does anyone feel more confident after being able to basically pick Patty's brain and just, get to her what worked physically? She's reading from her actual notes that she submitted before. Please write in the chat box any questions you have or, any encouragement that you feel because of, yes, Jackie, you have your hand raised. Go for it.
Hi, I'm curious. This all sounds great, and there's so many benefits, right? As you say, what are the most common objections that you hear employers have, and
So
how people work around them?
Yeah, the most common objection that HP would have, given that they even recognize this could work, is because we were asking to be a 1.5 FTE. So that was a person and a half. And so, if that 0.5 could have been combined with another 0.5, they've got another person in the division. And so really proving to them that you are getting so much more than the equivalent of one individual in this role that's big enough that warrants that, that was the challenge there. We tried to move as a job share team to other companies, and that we found was much harder. If a company hadn't experienced this, there was just the uncertainty of, if you were hiring someone from the outside, there's the uncertainty about your employee in general, are they really going to work out? And now I'm layering on another uncertainty. So that's when it was harder. And one of the ways, even internally, is the suggestion that you offer it as a 6-month pilot, and that if it doesn't work out, you're happy to switch back to a full-time role. And so sometimes that's what you'll have to do. So I'm seeing in here, how long did you do this, and have things changed, and what would the approach be? So I did it for over a decade, just a bit over a decade. And I really have always felt that for someone who wants flexibility for whatever reason, and the title that we put into this Power to Fly session is, there's such an advantage if you want to stay on the career track to still have some interesting work, that I was surprised. And that's why I'm such an advocate. I really think there's a win-win for both. And I think because of COVID now is a great time to get the word out there. Approaches with changes happen now. Right now, there is so much more collaborative software that I believe it would be easier. The question I would have, as I talk to folks that are much younger than myself and are in some of these internet related companies, digital companies, they feel like they have to be always on between Slack, and maybe nobody's doing email anymore, but whatever formats their companies are using, they feel like, great, I can work from home, or I can travel somewhere on a weekend, but I always have to have my phone and I always have to be on. And I'm not sure how it works in an always on culture. And I'm not a fan of an always on culture. And so I think that again, my experience was getting to a manager level and then doing it. And once you're a manager, you get to set the tone to some degree on whether the culture is always on or not. But I think that could be, again, another one of the obstacles, and something to think through very clearly what you're signing up for in terms of when you're on and when you're not.
Yes, we often talk about burnout. It's an overwhelming amount of folks experiencing burnout. I feel like it's, due to this always on culture, if we can coin it that way, because it's, we can be easily accessible. We definitely don't want to lose our job. So we feel like we have to respond, and the pressure, and it's definitely, it's not holistic, and it doesn't it's not in line with work-life balance and wellness, let's say. So I love that you're highlighting that, and how this could, be something that is an alternative that is healthy for both parties involved. So thank you for that. I know that we've got some great questions here, because again, it's an unconventional thing. And I would even be interested in reading some research. This is probably going to prompt me to nerd out a little bit once we end this chat. But historically speaking, diverse folks, women, have not been able to hold leadership roles, and have not been able to lead us discussions like this until, let's say, now, until more recently. So because this is kind of like the black sheep, for lack of a better word, it makes you go like, but I don't know, can this work? How do we go about doing this? This isn't the norm. But one of my expectations as, being more inclusive in the workplace, being more, practicing more emotional intelligence, is that we can hear that these are alternative solutions that can be beneficial for everyone involved. So again, Patty, thank you for highlighting that. We have a question here in the chat. Where did you find your job share partner? Was it within HP? So I believe that, yes, that's the answer. Yes, you all were working together at HP.
Yeah, and I'm going to the one above that, where how do you find job share opportunities, and then where, I'll kind of answer both of these together, but also acknowledging this issue that I feel like as much as I try to advocate for this, I've not heard about it as much as I would like to. And then in preparing for this, I did look at a couple of articles, and I saw that in 2016, so a little dated, but there was a report that said 18% of companies offer the ability to job share. In these articles, they referred to people from Ford, and it was 2 women moving into a relatively senior position there, Target, Unilever, GE, Lloyd's Bank. Can't read my handwriting. Okay, in GE, they were going to get a wider scope of responsibility. One of the examples in the article was an older male. He was in his 50s with a woman that was maybe in her late 30s or 40s. She was still very much motivated to move through on a career track. He was getting close to retirement. Job shares are also a way for companies not to lose the institutional knowledge of the people that are getting ready to retire. And also, by scaling back their hours or combining these jobs, there's also a bit of savings of some of those heavier paychecks when someone's getting ready to retire, by scaling down those hours if they're sharing for someone who's moving up. And maybe that younger individual who's moving up is doing the job share while she's in those crunch years. And by the time he's ready to retire, she's ready to do it full time. So there are a lot of different benefits, and there are a number of companies that are at least familiar with this. My job share partner, I did find within HP, and back in that time, I do know of other people at other tech companies, because it's sort of a small community and you know one another, and they would, if they want a job share, they'd look first in the company they worked for. But if I didn't find someone within HP that I thought was great for doing it, and I knew of someone at a similar company with similar experience, I might have posed that they join me for a job share. But it's easier from a company perspective to keep 2 of their own employees than to introduce a new employee and offer that kind of benefit when maybe someone internally wanted it. I do know of women since then that are applying for certain roles. So it's a completely open role, and they're finding their job share partner, obviously outside of their workplace, because they either leave a company to do it with someone else and apply for this new role, or they're people coming off a career break and trying to do this.
Fascinating. So beautiful. Thank you, Patty, for diving into those questions that we had our live callers submit in the chat box. We've got just a couple minutes left. Actually, I told you all that time was going to fly by. I would like to just hold for a light pause to see if someone wants to hop off of mute if they didn't have a chance to write in the chat box or to hop off of mute. Now's your time to shine. So I would love to hear from you. It could be a reflection, it could be a tip or a trick, it could be another question for Patty, but I'm going to hold for a light pause to see if someone would like to come off of mute now. All right. Jessica, I see you're off mute. Would you like to say something?
Hi. First of all, I want to say hi to Patty. I talked to Patty on the phone about a year and a half ago, or ish. It was pre-COVID, I think, about job sharing. So one, this is just fills my heart because it's such an important conversation, and I love it. So I'm a co-founder of JobShare Connect, and we are building a platform to standardize job sharing for both the talent and the employers, but it is a huge uphill battle. I know Melissa Nicholson's on this call as well from WorkMuse. We want
I just put that on the chat.
Yes. She has been a pioneer in this, and we are joining her charge and just trying to standardize this for both talent and employers. So if ever anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn or wants to dive in more about what we're doing and how we're doing it, I'd love to have the conversation. But there is so much opportunity here, and it can really change so many people's lives. We just need to be empowering more people to know about it. So thank you, Power to Fly, and thank you again, Patty. And then figure out how to make it happen. So thank you for this today. It's just been awesome. Filled me up.
Jessica, make sure you put your the name of your company, and I put WorkMuse in there, and they have a wait list now for a neat program they have called the JobShare Academy. And I would love to make sure that the name of your organization is in there as well, so people can reach out to it. And I don't know, Mariella, or if any of you on the line are aware of, it's so easy to do this for women who might want a job share and help tee them up for this. I would love to do this for companies and really have them be able to ask their questions that might cause them to pause and really walk them through what the benefits could be, what this could look like, what they should require if they're willing to do it. So if Power to Fly ever has anything that targets the companies they work with, I would really want to make sure that they get a full understanding of the tremendous benefits that they could get.
Yes, I love it. Let's speak that into existence. I love that we are advocating right now in real time. Thank you both for speaking up, Jessica. And I think that WorkMuse, I didn't get the woman who is heading WorkMuse, but great work. And also, I love that this is a testament for any of the curious live callers who aren't comfortable with this conversation, because it is something that is uncommon. So we've got folks on the line who are working to bring more bodies, more beautiful minds into this way of working. So thank you both for that. We've got just about 2 minutes left. So Patty, leave us with some food for thought. Again, like I said, I'm going to rewatch this and take notes, and I'm going to do some more research and I love the research that you were able to find, even though it was a little dated, as you mentioned. But what a great time to be alive, right? To just challenge the status quo, to try to move into something a little more experimental and healthy. Please leave us with some food for thought, and then let us know how we can connect with you once we end this chat.
Yeah, so a little food for thought is, many of you may want to do this. But some of you also may be hiring managers. And so I just want you yourselves to think of the hiring managers that you may know in your community. So not necessarily in your workplace. And, just be willing to talk this up, especially in this time where women are being challenged so considerably because of the multiple demands that they have. So that is going to be the word of wisdom that I have, that move from being a fan of this to an advocate so that we can get more of it happening. When you notice it working well somewhere, whether it's in your school system or the medical profession or any companies, just try to talk it up. And then I will right now put in the chat my email address. And someone earlier already recognized that I'm a little hard to find on LinkedIn sometimes. I actually thought I was making it easier, and now I realize that maybe the search isn't working the way I think it is. as I went through much of my life, I was known as Patty Ann. So in LinkedIn, I'm Patty Ann. O'Brien is my maiden name that I haven't really officially switched, but White is my married name that I tend to go by because of my children have that name. So Patty Ann O'Brien White is all in my LinkedIn. If you put in all of that, I'm sure you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And also, if you are here with us live, you're going to get a rewatch email, and we're going to make sure that we include these great links that Patty has mentioned, also ways to connect with her so we can make sure we connect with you, the right Patty White, on LinkedIn. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been a great conversation. It definitely will propel me to do some more research and to advocate. So thank you for challenging us on that, Patty. And I hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their day. We'll see you on the next chat.